How did science fare under the Nazi regime? Next on History, John Cornwell explores that question from his book, Hitler Scientists: Science, War, and the Devil's Pact.
Behind the Nazi endeavor in science was a whole philosophy and pseudoscience of eugenics and of racial hygiene. To put it in its simplest terms, it was the biologization of race. It was making a science of race which worked in a kind of pyramid with, of course, the Teutonic at the top, at the apex, and Jews and blacks at the bottom.
And I believe the reason why I bookmarked this was actually for 165, the third paragraph. But Kohler's tribulations were far from over. In June of 1935, the Gestapo instructed the university to fire two of his assistants, Karl Dunker and Otto von Lahnstein, for anti-Nazi activities. Kohler's position was now untenable. He again offered his resignation, which was accepted on 6 September, and he departed for the United States to take up a post as visiting professor at Swarthmore College, supported by Rockefeller Foundation grant. So Rockefeller's playing both sides. He's ensuring the Nazis come over. He's supplying, using Standard Oil to give them patents on the certain kind of petrol fuels and supplying them oil and patents. And he's supplying America with Nazi doctors, playing both sides, making sure the New World Order agenda proceeds as planned, as well as using his secret society plants, like Planck, to try to steer Hitler toward his goal, and use Hitler's passion to further his goal. So, it's important to note that you have Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Physics, you have Carnegie Institute, you have Rockefeller Foundations as well, and Rockefeller grants. Page 170, 171. Here we go. The gradual reduction of incidence of stomach cancer from the high levels of the First War was most likely a result of an increase in fresh foods and a decline in adulterated foods. Due to modern transportation, many foodstuffs, moreover, have been subject to harmful dye additives to make them appear fresher than they were. I repeat, the gradual reduction of incidence of stomach cancer from the high levels of the First War was most likely a result of an increase in fresh foods. So it was these organic foods that was saving you. They were using the food to get at you, and Rockefeller was granting them grants the whole time.
There's something else which is in a rather different kind of sphere altogether. This man is Max Planck, a deeply civilized man who won the Nobel Award. He was the father of quantum physics. And in 1933, when Hitler came to power, one of the first things he did was to dismiss all the Jewish scientists. Most of them came to America and to Britain. Now, there is a view that those scientists who were not engaged in racial hygiene, not engaged in the use of slave labor, not engaged in experiments in the death camps, but were good, regular, decent people, nevertheless acquiesced in Hitler's overall plan and design by accepting, in the first place, from 1933, at the very outset of the regime, this attack on fellow Jewish scientists. The phenomenon is known as fellow traveling. What does the fellow traveler do? The fellow traveler accepts benefits from the regime, from the dictator, while at the same time standing apparently aloof from the politics and the ideology. And I want to stress this very particularly because the reason that I call this book Hitler's Scientists and twinned it with my last big history book, which was called Hitler's Pope, was precisely because these two books are about the phenomenon of fellow traveling. In the case of Hitler's Pope, I was studying the behavior of churchmen who took benefits from Hitler while seeming apparently aloof ideologically from him. Now, why should one mention this phenomenon of fellow traveling? What is important about it? What's important is that historians today, in the last 10 or 15 years, have come to the conclusion that the fellow traveler often did far more damage and was far more dangerous than many of the card-carrying Nazis, whether they were churchmen or judges or bishops or indeed scientists or academics. And the reason that they were dangerous and damaging was that they gave such appalling scandal to a younger generation, the people who were looking up to them. This man, Max Planck, was one of the great heroes of science, one of the most respected figures in Germany. And the view was this, that if a Max Planck can accept Hitler, can acquiesce in some of his major decisions and acts, then Hitler can't be all that bad. In other words, the fellow traveler demoralizes dissidents, demoralizes people who are perhaps sitting on the fence, and scandalizes an entire younger generation.